This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse. You might have talked about this, but I need to know how a woman goes and gets her law degree and then all of a sudden says, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to go to the screen. Please tell me what this transitional moment is.
It wasn't quite, that actually sounds easier and quicker than the way it happened. But I always say that acting found me through a confluence of events. I didn't set out to be an actor, to become an actor and be in this career. But I will say, when I was like in the fifth grade, I asked my mom to take me to go get headshots. And I don't even think I knew what headshots were.
A whisper of something.
There was a whisper of something. Like a lot of kids say that, right? Like my niece would say that, I want to be on Disney Channel, that kind of thing. But like, how do you do that? Right?
Yeah.
If you don't come from a family, you don't have anybody in your family in this business or anything like that.
Which is
But I
why
was
this
always
podcast exists. 'Cause
right.
you're like, how do you do
How do
that?
you do that? And I was always academically gifted as well. I'm the youngest of three girls, and my late father was an architect. And so I guess in a lot of sense, like he's the artist in the family. My mom is retired now, but she was a middle school teacher, learning disabilities teacher. And so she had the same schedule as her children. So she was always taking us to arts related activities. I played almost every instrument growing up. Like I was in violin, I was in piano, and I was in this and that. And then dance, I was at Dance Theater of Harlem all through junior high school and high school, ballet, tap, and jazz every Saturday. I couldn't hang out with my friends because I was in my dance classes. But I was out of my sisters, I was the one that stuck with all of those things the longest, right? So
Mhm.
I was artistically inclined, but I was also very academically inclined as a student. And then again, how do you become an actor? So academics just took over. I come from an academic family, so I went to college, I went to law school, and then
Let's just tell the peoples. You went to Cornell and then you went to Georgetown for
law
law
school.
school.
Yeah, yeah.
And look, I just unfortunately just had a whole couple months in court. I'll tell you, it's not that like big of a difference to go from being a lawyer to being an actor, but you were corporate law.
I
So
was
it
corporate law, so it wasn't like
wasn't like all
it
right.
wasn't being in court. It wasn't like what's it's not wasn't like Matlock. It
Yeah.
wasn't that kind of thing. It was doing deals and mergers and acquisitions and high
Pushing
yield
paper.
securities and merging corporations, which is not an insignificant thing. The law firm that I went on to practice at, they are, and this is not my exaggeration, they're the most prestigious law firm in the world, right? There's only three offices. And they merged AOL and AO, what was it? AOL Time Warner. They merged JP Morgan and Chase. They merged ABC and Disney. So they're very significant. So I went on to practice there and it wasn't my passion. I was a good
Mhm.
lawyer for sure, but with time, I knew that I really didn't have any desire to be partner. I wasn't going on that track. That wasn't the thing that I wanted. So was like, okay, Frances, what is it that you want to do next? And I was thinking as a lawyer, I said, maybe I want to teach in a law school. Maybe I want to go in house or something. But while I'm trying to figure that out, let me get back to my creative side. Let me start nurturing that again because you work so much, you don't have the time to do it. And this is the reason I say acting found me, with the little asterisk where I say, I believe that if we stay present, we will eventually become who it is we're supposed to become
Mhm.
in the world, right? So at the time I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do as a lawyer next, I happened to be reading the New York Times, the Sunday Times, and there was this article about this woman who was behind all of these A-list actors as a coach, including Nicole Kidman for a long time. And still, she's worked with everybody. And I'm reading about her, and I was really fascinated. Juliette Binoche, all of these wonderful people she's worked with. Spike Lee, the actors in his films, up to, I think, He Got Game. And I see her picture. Her name is Susan Batson, and she's
Yeah.
this tiny little black woman, like 4 foot nothing, protege of Lee Strasberg herself. And I am fascinated just by her. Who is this woman? She's behind all of these people. And I wasn't like, I'm going to find her and take acting classes. I'm a very curious person. I'm just a very intellectually curious person. If something I hear about something or I see something, whatever, I just want to know more about it. So I started Googling her because I wanted to learn more about her. And then I saw she had an acting studio in New York. And at the time, it was called Black Nexus. Now it's Susan Batson Studios. And something made me call. Nobody answered. Maybe like once a week, I just called. Nobody answered. That went on for a few months. Every 2 weeks, man, I remember and I'd call. But again, I wasn't like, I want to take acting classes, but something was pulling me to call.
Mm.
One day they answer the phone and they say, "Oh, we've been closed for 6 months because we moved locations. So we've been building out the new studio. Our first class back is tomorrow. It's our drop-in class. We see you come to that. We see where you are. It's our ongoing students and new students, and then we put you in an ongoing class. It fills up. It starts at 6, so just try to get here 10 minutes before." I said, "Okay." Now, you're talking to Francis, who is 100% through and through artist, right? Then I'm a different person. I'm like lawyer Francis. Got scared, didn't go. That next day, did
You
not go.
didn't?
The next Friday, I procrastinated all day at work, like all kind of self-sabotage, right?
Mhm.
Something made me get on the train. At the time, they were down in off Canal Street. I'm in Brooklyn, one more stop, right, on the same train. It's Friday. I'm like, one more stop and I could be home, or I'm probably not going to get in the class anyway. But again, I felt that pull. Something made me get off the train. I get there, I'm the last person to get in the class. Susan's teaching the class, right? And I say that's important because she maybe only taught their X or actor class. She maybe only taught 2 or 3 more classes after that. And then she was like off doing a film with Nicole Kidman or something. She wasn't teaching. She was around, but when she came back, she was around the studio, but she wasn't teaching that class. I went through the class. It was like there's methods, there was sense memory. But again, I'm lawyer Francis.
Yes.
So
And now
where
you're going into sense
they're in the
memory. Yes.
circle, and you're just the person's in the one student's in the circle, an actor in the circle, and you're taking on the energy, and then it's the sense memory exercises for the monologue that we would do. Think about a time, I don't remember exactly, but like when you were abandoned. Who were you with? Where were you? Was it hot? Was it cold? What did it smell like? What was their music playing? Were there a lot of people? Were you alone? Who was in front of you? What do they smell like? How tall are they? Reach out and what do their eyebrows feel like? Rest your hands on their shoulders. Run your hands down their arms and what do you want to say to them? What are they saying to you? And then you hear people sob and, everything.
Yeah.
So we go through that and then we get the monologue. We go up and do the monologue. And it's the monologue is you're going in to see your boss because you know you're about to be fired, right? So the
Mhm.
sense memory is think about a time when you were abandoned. And then the monologue, would think, oh, it's going to be about somebody leaving me or whatever, but it's how to take all of that comes up and put it into this scenario because the need to feel loved and not feel abandoned is what's operating, right? And
Yes.
so we get up in the same order, we do the monologue and we get the feedback. And Susan said to me, she said, "So who are you? Where did you come from?" And I'm like, "Francis, I'm a lawyer." And she said, do you want to act? And I said, "Oh, I think so." And she said, "Because I see something in you." And she said, I reminded her of an actress who I am a huge fan of. And she said, "But you got to give me 6 months because a lot of lawyers and investment bankers come in and they want to act and then they don't stick it out. They never come back." Now, what I realized many years later is that what she was saying is you've got to give it 6 months to even start to find the beginnings of your artist to get
Mm.
get through all the lawyer cover and persona that you're
Yep.
living in. And it's not going to be easy. So you have to commit to, and then we can start working with your artist, right? So one class a week became 2, became 3, became 4, all while I was still practicing. My friends, my family knew I was taking acting classes, but nobody really knew how serious it was. My secretary did because she would say, "Oh, you got to get to acting class. You finish your day, you got to get to acting class." And then I got to a point where I said, oh, okay, it was maybe like 2 years in. I think I found my passion.
Still practicing law two
Still
years in.
practicing law. And
Okay.
I even had a point where I said, maybe I don't want to be an actor. Maybe I just want to be a lawyer and film production
Hmm.
counsel.
Sure.
And I did some informational interviews and my eyes were just like glazing over. I was like, no, this is not the side of the business that I want to be
Mhm.
on. And but then I had a lot of fear. It's how do I leave something so secure that I love for something that I love, but I think I love, but has absolutely no security at all. People are nuts. Like all of those things. And then I remember waking up. I will always remember that that happened in December because it was in January. I woke up one morning and it was like I heard my voice say, "This is what I leave for." And
Mhm.
then I felt calm because I'm not impulsive, right? So I was going to put a plan in place to really see if I can how to do this, right? So I worked a few more months and I took a 4 month leave of absence from my firm just to start auditioning because I couldn't do that when I was practicing. I could get staffed on book some indie something and then get staffed on a deal and I'm working like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So I was like,
And
I
when you
just
take an absence, are you still getting paid? Are you able to still get paid? Because that's a smart
no.
thing.
So I saved. That's
Mhm.
why I worked a few months before I took my leave. So I had some savings and I made sure to, because again, I'm not a stupid person. So I made sure to go back before the end of the year to get the prorated bonus so I could save more money before
Yes.
I left.
Yes.
I found a way to utilize the job. But yeah, I took that leave and I started working commercially, like non-union right away. I had the typical, like a bunch of agents I was freelancing with. And and then I started doing student films and like indie films right away. And one of my friends, he's a friend now, but I had just met him at Black Nexus. He recommended me to an NYU first year MFA student in the directing program. And because she needed a lead for her film, her first short. And then she ended up musing me. And so I did all of her films for her whole NYU career. And in her class, her name's Kiara Jones, super talented filmmaker. And in her class was Chloe Zhao, Shaka King, Kyle Adrian Scott, Molly Asher, really tight-knit class. They all worked on each other's films, a level of talent astounding as we see, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just continued to do that. And then I went back to work. And then I worked for about 4 more months and then I left. But I say acting found me through a confluence of events because I did not set
Yeah.
out to act. And I really believe Susan Batson really did change my life. I know that I'm only sitting here, right, on a press junket for Fallout season 2 because I walked into that studio with that acting teacher because I wasn't setting out to be an actor. I was just looking to nurture my creative side while I thought about what I was going to do next as a lawyer. I could have
Yeah.
walked into a different acting studio and had a different experience and said, I'm not coming back here. Let me go take a hip hop dance class or learn
Completely.
photography or paint, sip and paint or something. But that experience with Susan and the way she saw me and spoke life into me and just encouraged me and then continued to encourage me at my time there was really what that
Made
she
you
changed my life.
blossom. Yeah, completely. Okay. So then tell me when the first agent manager, you were saying you were being hit pocketed a little bit or
Yes.
freelanced.
Yes.
Does a job come first before the agent or manager, or does the agent manager
Yeah, so
come?
I built the kind of starter New York credits
Yes, of course. I saw
without
your Law and Order. Everybody needs it.
That's
Everybody.
how I got my SAG card. My cold open co-star, Nurse Bird. I'll never forget her. I had maybe 3 lines, and then I made it into just on the other side of the commercial, like the tail is the very beginning, and then Nurse Bird was done. But that's how I got my SAG card, and I actually got that because at the time. I knew that was when there were three
Mhm.
Law and Orders happening in New York. So they had all the rules about if you do one, you can't do another one. So they always needed actors. And I knew that was the one I'd heard just like an actor talk in community that you don't, they're always looking for actors. So you can get a Law and Order, you can book a Law and Order without a co-star, without an agent. And so I actually went to a workshop like targeting that just so they could get to know me. And I treated those like auditions. I didn't treat those like, oh, I'm just kind of here. I treated them like auditions. Yeah, from that, they had me in for something that I didn't get. And then another co-star I didn't get. And then they had me direct to producers for this one. And I booked it. And that's how I got my SAG card.
That's you got your SAG card. Now does the agent and manager come? Because then you're SAG eligible.
Yes. So the agent and manager, oh gosh, you have me thinking back and just how much of my journey has been. Steve Jobs has this quote, you can only connect the dots in hindsight.
100%. Yeah.
And there was just, I do have very strong instincts that I've always trusted, really trust now. But I had met Marcy Phillips I think I had done like an evening with her at one of this, well, like one-on-one or something like that. And just really loved her energy and her vibration. So I love Marcy Phillips. She's another one who was like so instrumental in my career. And I just was like, the same way I was like, I want to learn more about Susan Batts. And I said, I just want to be around her energy more. Like the way she vibrates is the way like I feel inside me that I vibrate. So
Mhm.
I ended up taking like a longer, like a 6 evening workshop with her. And then by the end of the second night, she says to me, she said, who are you with? And I said, I'm looking for representation because there was an agency hip pocketing me on the legit side, but they weren't sending me out for anything. If I met somebody at a workshop they were just like they took the incoming call kind of thing.
Got
And
you.
I had just made a decision at that point to take them off of my resume, right? Because an acting coach I was working with at the time, privately, Rosalind Coleman, she said, if they're not helping you, they're hurting you because
Mhm.
people want to feel like they've discovered someone. And if people are seeing your work and they're responding to it in this way, and they look at your resume and they say, oh, okay, so she's with XYZ, then it doesn't occur to them that they need to do more than that. But if they love your work and they're like, oh, there's something special I see here, she's not repped, let me help her. And that's
Great
what
piece of
happened.
advice. Great piece of advice.
That's what
So you
happened.
took them off, and then Marcy
I took them
made,
off, and
made
then
some phone
Marcy
calls.
asked, and then I said, "Oh, I'm actually not." And she's like, "Well, what about a manager? Would you consider a manager?" And I said, "Yes, I'm actually because I was actually looking for a manager at that time." And this is like the crazy confluence of events. I was in conversation with a manager that I was interested in and that was interested in me. And someone I knew, an actor I knew, wasn't repped by them, but knew one of the managers really well. So I had met with them and they were like, oh, we really love you, but we have another actress that you might conflict with, right? And so I said, oh, okay. But they were like, I just sent your reel to my partner, and we're still looking. So when Marcy says, are you looking? And she said, what about a manager? I say, oh, I would love a manager because I feel like I need to be developed, right? Because I was still so new and so green. She said, what about? And she names literally the same manager.
Gotta love
The
them. That, and then you're
same
like, ding, ding. Yep.
The same manager. And I said, oh, that's so funny. She named the business partner that the one I had been talking to was going to show my things to. And I told her what I said, well, they said they have somebody. She was like, no, I know the actress and you guys are completely different. That's like saying you can't have two because she was another black actress.
Yes.
That's like saying you can't have two blonde actresses or two
Hmm.
brunette. You two are completely different people. And so I ended up working with that manager for a few years until I moved to LA. And from there, that's when I started auditioning on a TV and film level. Again, very new, the whole nine. But
Well,
that's where I booked my first pilot. My first pilot
that's
season with them is when I booked my first pilot.
and that's what just to catch the audience up that's listening, you start getting one-offs. Guest
Mhm.
star here, a guest star here, a guest star here. So you're climbing that ladder. What is the first? I was just looking, what is the first pilot that you got with
It
them?
was called $2 Beer.
Yeah.
And it was a recession era Friends created
Ah,
by Mike Binder,
yep.
multi-camera comedy. And it was so crazy because I'm starting to work, I start working with this manager And at that time, I don't know how we do it now since everything is virtual and self-tapes and all of that. But at this time, like you would go in for generals. So I already knew Marcy and I had a general with Warner Brothers, right? So Meg Simon was the head of VP of casting there with Finley, who I love, Davison. And they saw something in me as well. So just as Marcy then continued to have me in the room for auditions for things that she felt I was right for, Meg and Finley did the same thing. And then I remember saying, "Oh wow, okay, this is really cool." I said, "I don't know anybody at Fox. Can we get a general at Fox?" And my management at the time said, "Pilot season's coming, so we'll get you in there on an audition." And that audition is the pilot that I booked.
Francis, this is amazing. This is like the best game of chess possible. Where you're like, I'm gonna move over here. I'm gonna put my phone over here. This is
That is,
incredible.
it's the pilot that I booked. And then I mean, at that time I was, because again, like I was training, but I didn't go to drama school. I don't have an MFA. So I took very seriously learning the craft of acting, right? And filling in the gaps where I could see that it's okay, I'm have the access to my emotional life because I'm working on that here, but then how do I craft that into material? So then I started working with Roz Coleman privately, and we would just take my auditions, and that's really how I learned audition technique and breaking down a scene and bringing all of my craft
Mhm.
into technique.
Okay, then now I have to ask because it is that one audition. I've got a lot of auditions I want to ask you about. But when I say that, is it $2 beer? That's that one audition for you, or which one is it?
That was the
Walk us through.
audition that told me that I could do this.
Oh yeah.
That
Yeah.
was the audition that changed everything.
Comedy. So I'm curious if you were starting to work with a comedic coach
No, I
or
just
with just instincts because there is a
instinct.
musicality that goes with
Yeah.
comedy. And
Mhm.
sometimes we can hit it.
I had a lot of comedy auditions to begin with. So again, working with Roz
Yeah.
on my auditions, I learned I learned how to break down comedy material and
Mhm.
rhythm of it. And then with me and comedy, which I learned later, but I realized I was always doing this, is if I find it funny. Like
Yes. Well,
it's
then
if,
you're not taking out the essence of yourself. I think a lot of
yeah,
comedy coaches and a lot of comedy schools sometimes can strip you of your essence or your authenticity
they'll
because they're
take
like,
technique the
dun,
life
dun,
out of
dun.
you.
Yes, take the life out of you because they
Mhm.
get so technical. I
Yeah.
really that you infused comedy this way because
Yeah.
that what you find funny, that keeps your authenticity
Yeah.
front and center versus the technique.
And it forces you to find what you think is funny. So then you end up bringing that thing that only you can bring because it's coming out of your comedy point of view, your sense of humor, what you find funny, how
Mhm.
you would approach this material. And that's the way I approach material, whether it's comedy or drama. Like, I'm not looking for, and I think this is va very valuable advice for actors. And this is something that an actor told me when I was very green, and is a very established actor. A friend of mine who's friends with him said, Wendell Pierce said, I was just starting out. I just left my law firm, and my former neighbor, who was still friends with, said, I should introduce you to Wendell, and like you can ask him questions and get advice from him. And I was so honored. And he just, I don't know that he would ever remember this, but he gave me so many gems that I feel like I was aware and attuned to things early on that would have taken me longer to learn. So things like how you approach material and how you approach auditions. So when you say you get a co-star and then a guest star and these things here that build to something, it's about, I don't try to book the job, I try to book the room
Yeah.
and make fans out of casting because there are many reasons. Every actor says this. There's so many reasons why you may not get a job. And I also believe like if a job is not your job, there's nothing you can do to make it your job. But
You
if
also
it's,
can't mess it up if it is your job. You
well,
cannot make it, if
exactly,
you
there's
can make as
nothing you can
many
do to get in the
mistakes
way
you
of
want,
it.
they're gonna give it to you still. It's your
So for me, I've always approached it like, and this is something that Wendell told me that really stuck with me. He said, our job is auditioning. Booking the job is the icing on the cake.
Yep.
And he said, every audition is a chance to be that character. You may only get what, if you're auditioning for Joan, you may only get that chance to be Joan in the audition. So this
Mhm.
is my interpretation of Joan. And if it works for you, great. If it,
If it
that's
doesn't,
fine too,
yep.
right? Instead of trying to figure out what do they want,
Yeah.
who do they think Joan is? No, they want to be inspired by your version of this character, what you do with this material. And when I had that approach early on. Again, Wendell saved me a lot of time in learning this. Like I had that approach a lot of time from early on when I started auditioning on the TV level and a film level. But for me, like TV is really where things happen sooner, faster for me, not faster, but like sooner for me. That I was just being brought back into the room for things I was right for because I was, yes, making choices, but kind of inhabiting the material with my version
Your
of the
sensibility.
character, my
Yes.
sensibility, my version of the character. This is my offering of her. And I was working on all of those things and I was learning with every audition because early on, I was coaching on them because that for me was also less about, yes, it was about the audition, but it was also an opportunity for me to learn and strengthen my craft.
That's what I always say on this too, because if you didn't go to conservatory, you're learning on the ground. So, like, opportunity. A
Mhm.
lot of actors don't like talking about having a coach. They want to have this egotistical thing that they have it
Yeah.
on their own.
Yeah.
I really love when people are very honest about working with somebody.
I needed that early on
Yeah,
because, like I said, like I was learning, I was finding the access to my emotional life at Susan's studio. But then it was like, okay, I'm not sure what to do with it when I get a scene. Like, how do
right.
I put that in there?
How do I integrate?
Yeah, so then I had to start working with a coach to find my process. And I've worked with great coaches. I've been in great classes over time. Roz was certainly one of them. Bob Krakauer was a huge influence on my craft and understanding of story and ease and all of that and just freedom. And just the more you do it, the more just being in class gives you like the chance to fail and try
Absolutely.
with
And
no,
when you
with,
and we got to practice. Like Michael
yeah,
Jordan did his free throws a continuous amount of time. So when you get to
yeah.
game time, you're not thinking about it.
Yeah,
It's pressure. It's
and to
different.
learn in community as well.
I
I
agree.
always have wanted to be in classes where like the actors were stronger than me, so I could
Mhm.
really learn. Now, I haven't coached in a while because it's funny how things shift because then I got to a point when I was living in LA. And I lived in LA from 2010 to 2016, and I was coaching and I was working with Margie. I was in Margie Haber's master class. So I was there for a while, and then I was at BGP Studios for a while. But I was coaching on auditions, and I got to a point, and it was with a comedy audition, actually, that I was like, all of the things I'm bringing to this material, like no one's giving me my choices,
Mhm.
right? So it's Francis, and this is my interpretation of this is what had to tell myself, right? Because this is not the case for everybody. But I had gotten to a point where it's like, Francis, you need to you need to stop being lazy and take more ownership of
Mhm.
your actor. Take more ownership of your creativity and do the work and not rely on a coach to help you get to the work. You
Good
that
point.
responsibility, take that responsibility on for yourself to do the work because you can do it.
You
And
can.
once I did that, that's when I started working.
Okay. That's what I want to hear because I feel like
Yes.
that's around the time either The Gifted or The Man in the High
So,
Castle
so
came.
that actually the first audition I did that for was the X's, right? I did a 3 episode comedy recurring on there. And that was a show that when I moved to LA, I went in the room with Sheila Guthrie. I went in the room for a pre-read and then to producers and I didn't get it. And then I could set my clock by it when they were in production because I would have a straight to producers audition
Mhm.
for the X's and I would never book. And it was always opposite Donald Faison. He was like the playboy kind of on the show. So it was always like a 1 episode kind of love interest. And I would never book them. And then this one came and it was at the finale season and it was a 3 episode arc and it was the movie star he falls for. And I went
Uh-huh.
right to producers and I booked it. But that was the first audition where I said, I'm not going to coach and I'm really going to trust my artistry and trust my craft and trust my actor that I know how to do this and take more ownership of my work. So
Okay,
that
so
was the
what'd
first
you
time.
do? Tell me. Okay, also, I want to say what you just told us too was basically for 10 years, you did coach everywhere. So it wasn't like all of a sudden you're like, I'm good.
Exactly.
You
No,
had earned your hours and times.
yes,
Now let me trust what
yes,
you know. So,
yes,
so
that's
tell
it.
us, what did you put into play? So for that audition,
So what I did was I was in class, where was I in class? I was in class at
we're at BGB
At
Studios.
BGB by that time, I think. I was at BGB by that time. But I still had like friends from Margie's studio from her master class. So I called up one of my friends from class and I said, hey, because I definitely have my process with material. And
We're
I said,
talking process here. So if you
no, I
want to
know, but what
share
I'm
a couple
saying,
of things, yeah,
what,
what do you do?
what, yeah, like I get the material. Yeah, I like to have two sleeps.
Mhm.
I get the material so I don't wait to work on it. And I use a technique that I learned from Bob Krakauer, but I really slow myself down to understand what's happening in the scene so that I don't miss
Mhm.
anything. And then as I'm doing that, kind of things will hit me instinctually. I'll understand certain things that I want to explore. And then I actually write out as I'm thinking about it. I'm like visual to brain person, whatever that is. So I'm like writing out what I'm saying. And it's not memorizing my lines because I don't memorize my lines, but in this process, I end up knowing my lines
Yes.
goes along. And like I'm just writing what I'm saying and thinking about it, and I'm hearing it and I'm walking around with it. And then I step away and then I come back. And each time I know it a little better. And it's like a glass of wine, it settles a little. And so then
Mhm.
now new revelations, new things will hit me about it. That's why I like to have two sleeps, right? So it
I'm
has
right there with you.
room to breathe. So I have this friend, I called him and I said, hey, will you just, because then at a certain point, like I grab a friend to read with me so that I can get it up on its feet and play and feel it and see how it feels. And I asked him to do that with me. This was the first time asking someone who wasn't a coach to do that with me. And I really had to force myself and take ownership of finding it and trusting myself and trusting my instincts. And it was comedy. And that's when I was like, yeah, Francis, this is funny because it's funny when I find it funny. When I'm stopping and, oh, that was really funny. This makes me laugh. Um, and so, yeah, that's what I did. And I still use a version of that in my process today. I do have like one friend in particular who's not even in this business, but she's been my friend since fourth grade. And she just she's coachable. But in doing that, because she's not an actor, it's forced me to be able to articulate, have to explain to her what's happening in the scene and why and what I need it this way because
Yes.
your character's experience and this is what I'm going through. So I have to really understand story to be able to, and character and relationship to be able to explain it to her so that she
Direct
translates.
her, which is
Yeah.
huge. I tell actors all the time, I do this with my actors. At a certain point in your career, you realize you need to direct your reader. When we used to go into the room, people would be so nervous to direct the reader or the casting
Mm-hmm.
director, but it's your audition.
Your audition.
And then when you can articulate that, as I set up my lights and I'm telling somebody what's going on, the story, and story always
Right.
comes first. And then,
And then you can feel
yes,
when it's not connected.
yes,
You
yeah,
can
absolutely.
feel. So you have to be able to, in order to ask for what you need, you have to understand what's happening in the scene. You have to
Hmm.
understand where the characters are. And then I prepare in a way, I can't remember who I heard say this might have come up in Bob Krakauer's class. It's like prepare in a way, not so that you don't get it wrong, but so that whatever you do is right because you understand story, you understand the character, you understand what's happening, and you're so locked in. And that's the way I approach auditions. That's the way I approach the work. When I'm on set, I prepare, I do my preparation, and then I let it go.
And then you get to
Let it
discover.
go. And then
Okay.
I'm free to discover. Yeah.
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes.
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created the Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
To a working actor.
I have to ask then about The Man in the High Castle because that's 2018 when you probably got that job because
That's
it came out
2018, yeah.
So we're still going in the room and we just
No, that was a tape.
It
That
was a tape?
Yeah, that was a tape, actually. That was a tape.
tell.
Pretty much all of my jobs from Man in the High Castle on were all I booked off tape. So that, including Fallout.
For me from the outside, that's a career-changing audition as well as job.
I will tell you the real kind of career-changing job came right before that. And it was a pilot. It was a pilot.
Oh,
And it was an ABC pilot called The Finest, aka Home
that
Sisters.
Regina directed.
Yeah, that Regina King and Robin
Yes.
Roberts executive produced and Regina directed. And that was the one before the one, right? Now that was actually in the room. So that was one of the one Marcy was always having me in. So I went and I did the pre-read. And then I found out I was going to producers, and I found out Regina King was going to be in the room, which was crazy. And then I found out that they were testing me. So it was 5 sisters, right? They were testing me using my producer's tape. But I knew, I really understood the material. And again, I went in and brought my own version of this character. So I went into the producer's session. And in the first scene, there's this like emotional, I can't remember exactly, but there's like emotional moment at the end of the scene. And I get to the end of the scene and I hear, and you can hear a pin drop, but then I hear, And that was Regina.
That Regina. I was going to say, please tell me it was Regina.
And I was like, I know that. She was like,
You got her.
And then I kept going. And then I'm very good friends with one of the producers on the show who's now writing full time. She's a writer on Walton. And we just stayed friends. And she told me, she was like, you were the only one who came in. And this is helpful for actors to hear as well, because this was never pointed out to me. I wouldn't know this unless she said it to me. So you were the only one who came in and didn't wait for permission to move from scene to scene.
Just went to the next.
Like you had the confidence that you did the work and ready for the next, and you didn't wait. You didn't look around.
I like that.
How was that?
You're like, do you need approval? Do you need to see
Want me to try something different? She was like, you just were really confident and you just didn't wait. So they tested me by my tape. And for that role, that sister, I was testing by tape and Tisha Campbell was testing by tape, right? Yeah. And then so then they called me and they said, okay, so here's the deal. That role is going to Tisha, which made complete sense with that sister. They're like, but you're on the show, but they're trying to figure out which sister to put you as. And Regina wants to call you to talk to you about it. I'm sorry. Regina King wants to call me to talk about what?
This is when you go.
No, I was like,
it's just
okay. And then my phone rings. I'm like, hello. And she was just so cool and down to earth. And she said, we all love you. ABC loves you. You're on the show. So don't worry about that. We're just trying to figure out which sister and the mix of sisters. And she said, there's 2 that we're thinking of you for. There's one who's like the second youngest, and she's a detective, and she's really cool, and she's having a secret affair with her detective partner and the whole 9. So we know you can do that. But there's the other one who the show is based on real life sisters in Queens, so home sisters in Queens, all of them in the NYPD. The Lena, in the birth order, she's the oldest. And they were like, we would make her, if you were to play her, we would make her we'd make Tisha's character the oldest, right? But she's the one who in real life is the first borough commander in the borough commander in the NYPD and the whole 9. And she's had her own interesting story. And so she's like, so we want to just see what you would do with this material. It's not an audition. She said, it's not an audition. If you have any questions, call me. But we just want to see what you would do on tape. I had booked a recurring on Preacher. So I was going to New Orleans to shoot the first episode. So I was like, okay, I'll just find a place to do it down there. And this is pre-2020. So it was like finding a place to sell tape and the whole 9. So I did it down there. And I came back, shoot the episode, I come back, and my agent tells me I booked the role of Nicole. So the cool, like the hip one. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay. But I'd worked on Lena's material, so I'd fallen in love with her. And so I'm like, okay, cool. They were still looking for her. I go in for my hair and makeup for preparation for the
The
wardrobe
test. Yeah,
test.
like your hair and makeup test.
And I'm trying on the clothes like for Nicole, and then I leave. And that night I get a text from Regina. It's almost midnight. And she said, I need you to call me. Are you up? I said, yeah. So I call her. She says, I'm gonna need you to play Lena. She's like, we're auditioning other actresses, but we keep coming back to your tape. And we keep coming
Mhm.
back to what you did with her. And even the costumes department head, the next day, she said to me, when I left the fitting, she says to the showrunner, Pam Vise, she said, that's not Nicole, that's Lena. And that's one of those things we're talking about, like when it's your job. And I think they were trying to get like a name, and Regina and I talked about it, and they viewed Lena as the lead
I
sister.
was just gonna
Yeah.
say you're the lead of this.
Yeah. They were, Tisha was like, girl, like when you hear everybody's trying to get this role. And I said, okay. And Regina said, and this is why I say this is the job before the job. She
Yes.
said to me, if this show goes, I think this would be a great vehicle for you. And I want to be able to pop my collar about that. And I said, Regina King, who I have always loved and admire, says that to me. And we went on to have a beautiful shoot and just, she's an amazing director. So affirming. And at the end, she was just pouring into me. And I said, oh, that means so much to me because I'm such a fan of your work. And she said, I'm a fan of your work.
Oh, I could
And
cry.
then the show didn't go.
And then
And
the
then we
show
didn't get
doesn't
picked
go.
up. So it was like we were all disappointed. And then literally a month later, I got The Man in the High Castle. So I went into The Man in the High Castle with all of that confidence. All of that confidence I got on the set of The Finest and being poured into by an actor whose work I have loved and respected for so long. For her to pour into me that way, like I walked into to Man in the High Castle with that.
Well, okay, then I hope that you will entertain this question then, because I saw this in a couple of interviews, and I think that this is part of the business that we really don't talk about enough. The Man in the High Castle, what an incredible role. What an incredible honor. What a career launcher. And then I saw in some interview that there was some stuff that you didn't want to do. We don't have to say what it is, and maybe it wasn't true in the interview, but I was curious how you handled that as when you're coming up as an actor, there was some stuff that you said you didn't want to
In
do.
the context of that show,
Yes.
there was actually nothing that ever came up that I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But I've always had, and maybe this is what you're referring to, I've always known since the start of my career, I've always had a vision of the kind of career that I wanted to have. And I always wanted to do just very deeply grounded, three-dimensional work, which is not easy to come by, one, as a woman, and not easy to come by as a Black woman. So for me, I'm like, because that's the reality. I don't know Black women whose sole existence is as like the ancillary best friend to the white lead. Like, I don't know Black women who move through life like that or who are just the boss with nothing else under it, just sturdy and strong and tough, or the helpmate. Like, I don't know Black women like that. So I've always wanted to show the complexity of that, and I'm a Black woman. So when I get to play a three-dimensional character, you're going to see a Black woman reflected in that way because I am a Black woman. Unless I'm an avatar and I'm blue, or I'm some creature that is definable by race. I have always been intentional about not being interested in roles that feed into those kind of tropes.
The
Right.
misinterpretations. Yes.
Yeah, so I've always
Yes.
stayed away from that. And historical time periods, I've never been interested in playing an enslaved person. And for me, if I'm playing in a historical time period, I say I need to be fighting back. And that's what Belle was doing.
She was. I guess what I was trying to say, and I thank you for fully elaborating on that. And like you said, but also when we're starting out, when people are so desperate to start working, sometimes we're not able to have. Let me ask it like this. I'm curious, did you have this conversation with your teams in rep? Did you have the conversation with writers, or is it just what you're willing to say yes to do auditions? Were you declining auditions that were trope.
If they felt like they were tropey, yes, I didn't at every stage of my career, and still. I understood when I said to myself, I want to have a career that's built on my work as an actor, right? Not because I went to some party or not because I want all my relationships to come organically through the work, which means I want to do the kind of work that I know that I'm capable of doing, which also meant that I needed to really develop my craft to be able to handle that kind of work, right? So for me, one, and I also don't book the tropey things because I don't think that's my essence.
Sometimes you're just maybe bringing too much to it. I felt like early on some of the tropes that I would go out for, I was too grounded in it, or I wasn't giving them visual version of what they were
Yeah.
seeking. It just
And
didn't work.
and I never want to hear, can you be a little more sassy? That's just not I'm just not interested in that. And it's not a judgment on anyone or anybody's work. But for me, I knew for the kind of career that I was hoping to have, I knew it would take longer. And I had to be okay with that. I had to be okay with if what I'm hoping for is longevity and like a real body of work that's really telling three-dimensional stories. And really, if I'm the character, I'm bringing so much to it and so many layers and nuances to it that you can't see anybody else playing that role. Like when it's, oh, you associate that character with me, that's just going to take longer. And I needed to have patience and endurance and be able to sustain myself when through the ups and downs of this career because it has not been a straight line.
Does it feel like there's been a down? Let's say since The Man in the High Castle, do you feel like you've hit any valleys? Like to call them valleys because we always got peaks of mountains. To me, as an outsider, it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, I've since Man in the High Castle, I've certainly hit the valleys that we all have in the COVID and then
Yeah.
the strikes and then rebounding. Although this I got Fallout. We shot the first season in 2022. New Amsterdam and The Boys came in the COVID period.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna ask.
Man on the High Castle came. It came out in fall of 2019, and I'm like, yes, we're off to the races. And then a few months later, the business shut down because it was COVID, and we were all stuck in our homes. So I did feel like, in a certain respect, like once we started auditioning again, that I was
Did you
starting
have to start
over.
over? It felt that way?
And I've actually felt that way through now it's easy to look back and say like each job was setting up for the next one. But there have been valleys. There have been many times that I was like, Francis, this is not sustainable. Maybe you need to think about something else that you should be doing other than this. I've definitely had those moments, but I've always gotten enough affirmation or some kind of something that told me to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I'm looking at your resume. I absolutely do. I've been staring at your face for the
But
last week,
but
100%.
but even
I'm
if it's
thank you.
even if it's in the form of you're like, I don't know if this is gonna, and then you get an audition with a casting director that you haven't seen in a while, and you're thinking like nobody wants to see me, but then they're like, oh my God, like we just love you so much, and then you realize, oh, they just haven't been working on anything that I'm right for.
100%. We always take it personal, right? As soon as you can shift it off of being personal, and then you run into a casting director in the street and they're like, oh my God, I loved you for that part. It went this way. And you're like, oh, it's selection. It really is a
And
selection.
just the fact that they keep bringing you in,
100,
and if you
that is
don't book
something.
it, it's telling you that they're rooting for you and you're
Yes.
doing the kind of work where they're excited to see what you bring to this material.
That's my favorite is when a casting director says, you might not be right for this, but I just want to see what
See what
you're
you do
going to
with
do
it.
with it.
Yeah. And then you may not
Yes.
be right for that one, but that makes them think, oh, we have this other project coming up, or there's this other role in the same
In the
project.
same
Like
universe. Yeah.
Megan Finley would have me in all the time. And I'm so thankful to the casting directors in New York because, again, that is where my craft got stronger as well, just being in the room. I never booked anything over there.
Not
But they
yet.
had not yet, but they had me in all the time, which
Yes.
only actually kept me going, let me know that I had casting fans, and allowed me to play with different material and jump in and tone switch and genre switch and all of those things, which only helped me strengthen my craft.
Absolutely. Okay, so I have to ask about the Fallout audition.
Okay.
Are they dummy sides? Because this is such a like a high concept
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's everybody did want to be a part of this. I know.
Real
So
sides.
Real
but
sides?
no context,
No
right? So
context,
no
real
script.
sides.
My audition scene was the scene in season one where we first meet Barb, where they're at the crafty table, and it's the lavender taffy moment. But there was no, I know it was Fallout, and I went on deadline to see, okay, what information can I find about this project? So I saw it was a video game. I went on to YouTube to see if I could see anybody playing, but what I saw made no sense to me with this audition scene, right? Because the games they don't really explore pre-war America. So I'm looking at the wasteland and I'm like, I don't really see how this fits. It's like this husband and wife. The breakdown was like Barb, wife of Cooper Howard and mother to Janie.
God love when they just tell you just nothing.
That was it. But it was I could tell, okay, it's the meet cute. We think they don't know each other, but then it flips. Like, oh, the daughter runs up. Oh, they're married. They flirt like newlyweds and they keep it fun. And then it was like, she says, okay, the photographer's ready and waiting, Mr. Howard. I was like, oh, okay. So he's a guy. He's a guy with some stuff going on. And I understood the dynamic of the trust and respect that they have because she's getting him together for it and they all smile and then they go off. But there was no like, here's a vault suit that you're going to wear. We're going to shoot a commercial for Vault Tech. There was no context. And so the funny thing was like, I almost didn't do the audition because
Why so?
I was just coming off of New Amsterdam
Amsterdam.
and I was working on the boys and they were both love interests. And I was like, oh, I don't know that if I don't want to get caught in just playing love interest, right? I want to get back to the kind of thing I was doing on The Man in the High Castle, like woman centered in her story, three-dimensional, all of that. But then I said, okay, at the time, Walton Goggins was not announced as being in the project, right? Otherwise, it'd be a different conversation. But I said, okay, Kilter films, Lisa Joy, Jonathan Nolan. I loved Westworld and The Dark Knight, which Jonah wrote. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I would love.
Is this the first time you're going in for John Papsadera too, or have you
No.
been in for
And
him
here's the
before?
other connection. John was the LA casting director on The Finest, on Regina's pilot. So
Okay.
that's the other connection. And so I have met John in person once in all of these years, right? But from The Finest, I was getting auditions from him all the time.
Okay.
And
Which
some
is
of
good for
them,
people to hear too. The finest
yes,
2018. Now here
yes,
we are, 2022, 4 years later. He still
yes.
hadn't
And,
booked with
and
John.
some of them I passed on because it wasn't the direction I was wanting to go after Man in the High Castle. Some of them I read for and didn't book. Didn't book any of them until Fallout. But that was one of the other reasons why I said, I'm going to tape this because this is one of John's projects. And then the Lisa Joy and Jonah of it all. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do 3 takes. And I was like, I understand the relationship. It shoots in New York. I'm going to do 3 takes. And if I like one, I'll send it off. And
Okay.
that's what I did. I didn't do my 2 sleeps. Like it was one scene. I was like, I understand this relationship. I understand. And I did 2 takes and I read with my friend who's not an actor. No, I actually read with because she wasn't available. So I read with someone else who I would tape with sometimes. But I have to tell you, once COVID hit and we had to get used to doing the tapes at home with a reader over Zoom, I have not gone back to having an in-person reader. I have my readers over Zoom all the
Over
time.
Zoom.
It
Hmm.
works fine for me. Yeah, I
Two
can't remember.
takes. 2 takes is what all
I
you
did
did.
3 takes and I just sent one of them. I usually only send 1 take of a scene. I sent one of them. And then a few days later, I saw in the trades that Walton Goggins was doing Fallout. And I said, he's probably playing the husband. Oh my gosh. Can I
Uh,
do a new take? Oh, but I was just like, okay, we'll see. And then a week later, I found out I got the job. So
okay.
there was no like second audition. There was no
They just use your
chemistry
tape, which
test.
is sometimes
Yeah.
why I like this world too, because you don't have to jump through as many hoops
Yeah.
all the time. You can
Yeah.
do live Zoom chemistries, but it's usually just tape.
The Boys was a tape. New Amsterdam was a tape. They're all tape.
Your tapes are doing well. I'm going to ask a technical question, a craft technical question, because you
Yeah.
said, I'm just going to do 3 takes, which I love actors starting to put parameters. Otherwise, you're going to go off the chains, and then that doesn't translate to being on set. If you have to do 30
Right.
takes to get it on set, you're going to burn
You're gonna get
yourself.
30 takes.
It's not going to work. So, do you do, are you doing 3 takes and you're going by a feeling where you're like, I just
Nope.
want to feel different in this one? Are you
Nope.
setting them up differently
Nope.
each time? What's
Nope.
your
Nope.
tactic for the
I'm
first?
just doing I'm doing a take and then I watch it
Mhm.
and then I see what I see what's hitting me and like I'll see things and I'll say, oh, I want to layer in. It's really just like whatever. It's so specific to whatever the material is. I'm not like, okay, I want to try one where I'm angry. I want to try one where, because that's result oriented, right? So
Completely.
I look at it and I say, okay, let me try it again. And I'll say to my reader, I'm like, in this moment, this is how I want to feel as the character in this moment. So push me a little more on that.
Yeah.
Really, don't be afraid to like push the character, push as your character, push me a little more so that I can have, I don't like to like manufacture moments or manufacture like being in the, I really like to be in the moment, right? So I'm like, don't just read, be in the scene with me over Zoom. But
Over this
but
technology right
over
now.
this, but yeah, so that's what I do. And then when I find one that feels good, I
Mhm.
send it. And that's why I generally, it's like I'm being asked for more than one take of the scenes. I only send one take because I'm like, if you want to see something different, then you'll give me the note. You'll give me a note. But again, going back to this is my version of the
Mhm.
character. So I'm not like, if you want one, they might want to take where they might see the character as more like hostile. So let me do a hostile take. They might view her as loving. I don't know. So let me do a loving. I don't do that. I'm like, this is my version of the character.
I agree with you because I think sometimes when actors are like, they're asking for two versions, unless it's a co-star where they could, I really think it does give a strong stance to be like, this is what it
Yeah.
is.
I can't say maybe there's one time. I can't remember a time that I like an audition came or self-tape request came and they said, please give us two versions of the scene.
I don't
I can't
think
remember
at the
ever maybe
level
once
that
or twice.
you're at right now for the large recurs and series regulars, they don't ask for it as much. Because
Yeah.
if so, they want a work session with you. That to me, it's a
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
session
Yeah.
at that
And that was
point.
High Castle was a tape. And then they flew me to LA for a work session with Jeannie Bacharach, who's
Mhm.
amazing, just amazing work. She cast the bear. And Dan, who is Percival is our showrunner. And yeah, that was it. And we did a work session. Jeannie read with me and they taped it. And then by the time I got home, I landed home, like I left the next day that I found out I had gotten the job.
Okay,
Yeah.
such great work. What a
Thank
great
you.
show.
Thank
Just
you.
such beautiful. Look, you're an incredible presence on screen. There's something about when you're watching people and you just feel invited in or their mirror neurons are just popping off. It's true. As an
Yeah.
actor myself, you can tell when it's to me, you can tell when it's substitution and there's something else when it's really manufactured and lived in the story. And
Yeah.
that's when I really enjoy being lost in the story. And every project that I've gotten to watch you be a part of in the last week, I really got lost in the story.
Thank,
So
thank you.
beautiful work. I
Thank you.
can't
And
wait.
it's placing that demand, like you said, like going back to when I stopped coaching, it really, and that's when my work really changed. And like I said, when I really started the years of me working, is that ownership and that trust and grounding yourself in the work. And there's really no shortcut to that and really like living in it. And I don't try to manufacture tears or anything. I've done the work so that I have access to my emotional life. And that's how I know if I'm not grounded in the
Mhm.
scene is if I can't access anything. So I place a demand on myself as Frances in my life to be present and live fully and feel and all of those things. I made that decision early on. I was like, Frances, you can't be this in your work, but not be this in your life. So I've made that, I placed those kinds of demands. If this is the actor, this is the kind of actor you say you want to be, that requires work. That
Yes.
requires commitment. So,
I think that really shows up. I like that your pivotal point is when you claim ownership over what you've learned. I think
yeah.
that I think confidence wins us the job 95% of the time.
Yeah. And you may not get it right, but that's the exploration. I have always felt 100 times better not getting a job, but doing bringing what I want to bring to it. This is my version of work versus not getting a job trying to do what you think they want. That doesn't feel good.
It never does. It never, and they
At
don't
the same
know.
time,
They don't
right.
even know
At the
what
same
they
time,
want.
I'm probably not going to get the job anyway. So let me go in there and take risks.
Yeah, it's the most fulfilling, isn't it? I like when you can discover something in the moment where I surprise myself afterwards. You're like,
Mhm.
did not expect that to happen that way. That feels
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
leave it.
And you
I'm
can
going
leave
to
it.
do 5 rapid fire questions, okay? How do you celebrate when you get these jobs? How are you celebrating?
My friends would probably say I don't celebrate enough. I've been celebrating lately, but I don't know. For me, the healthier place is to, I just keep myself level around this
Okay.
career. I've always kept myself level because I'm a four agreements person, so I don't take the good or the bad personally.
Love that. When you
Yeah.
stay neutral. Okay, most memorable first day. First day
Ah,
experience.
first memorable first day.
Memorable first day experience. First day on set. Which job?
Fallout. Because literally the first thing I shot in season one is when Walton, when Coop is filming, not the thumbs up commercial, but the when he's filming the commercial in the vault, and then he comes up and hugs me from behind. That was we just met. That was the day I met him, and we met in the blocking rehearsal.
God bless our careers.
And
Sick.
I've been a fan of his work for a really long time. He's a tremendous actor. So it was like, oh, okay, hi, nice to meet you. And then we jumped right
Goes
into
right in. Okay.
it.
This is a hard thing to always ask. Favorite actor you've worked with, but I'm going to put it on favorite tip that you've gotten. You've already given us a lot from Wendell at the beginning of your career,
And
but
I didn't
now,
even work with him.
and exactly, and you haven't even worked with him.
Generous.
But
Yeah.
now we'll like look at all of the actors that have come through, even if it's a guest star, I don't care. You've worked on New Amsterdam, The Boys, you got The High Castle, Fallout,
I'll give you one
Finest.
from early on.
Mhm.
I did an episode of Quantico, a guest star that was supposed to recur, but then the show got canceled. And I worked with Blair Underwood, who's an actor that I've really watched for a long time. To watch him on set, just I learned how to carry yourself on set. He is a class act. He is just a class act. And from him, like why he's had such a long career, just he's immensely talented. But they say people remember how you make them feel. And I just watched him just engage with everyone. And when it's time to work, it's time to work. And then also really take care of the guest stars in the scene. Because sometimes, especially when you're just like so early, you're like, okay, I hope I don't mess up my life. You never want to be the one that's keeping the crew late when they shouldn't be. But he was just so great and just kind and generous to all of us, and then also seeing like that they're human as well, like someone of his caliber is human as well, and grabbing a line when needed, and just all of those things. Just watching him was like my first master class, and I've had many master classes since then.
Have you seen him in Three Women?
I haven't, and I need to watch it because DeWanda Wise is also a friend of mine. So
They are both fantastic.
yeah,
And you
I'm
talk about
sure.
him just presence. Oh,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
love him. What's the one thing you've done that you wish more people would have seen? I'm gonna say what I think it is because I would have liked to seen it.
I'm gonna say Man in the High Castle.
You
I'm
wish
going
more
to say
people.
Man in the High Castle
Yeah.
because it was the final season, and it came out right on the lead into COVID, and we were also in still are in like tricky political climate.
Mhm.
And I think there might have been people who would say, I don't want to watch something that feels like it's mirroring
Yeah.
real life. But I do think that series leaves you with that story leaves you with a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of my work in it. And she really set the tone. I say Belle Mallory is one of my favorite girls. She really set the tone for me for the kind of work that I want to do. Three-dimensional women
Beautiful.
centered in their own story.
I would also like to be able to see the finest. So if they could just turn
Ah,
that out.
all of us will.
Yes. Really, truly.
It was
Okay.
great.
You, like you said, your whole idea of your career, what you want to play, what you want to explore. what's the one role you wish you could steal or what you want to do next? So if it's already on TV that you're like, that's something I want to do, or what are you looking to do next?
I will preface this by saying, to me, I'm not like a comedy or a drama or whatever. I'm always looking for three-dimensional women, complex, nuanced women. And we can exist in any genre, right? I've done comedy, I've done drama, I've done a lot of sci-fi, like dystopian, post-apocalyptic shows, satirical shows with big elements. I like to be a grounding force in those kinds of shows, so that's always fun. I would love to I haven't yet gotten to play against something that isn't real, like Elements, I think would be interesting. Thriller would be like suspense
Oh yeah, I want to see it.
world.
Okay. Usually when people say it, it ends up happening on the show. So I always like ending with
I
that.
would love that.
Thanks for letting me dig in and just ask specifics because I think it's incredibly helpful. Like you're sitting in a mentor seat for so many people that are listening right now, and they get to take notes, take what they want, leave the rest, and then get to go dive into your resume because damn.
And so many people were that for me,
I
right?
know. Well, thank you
Wendell
for being
Pierce probably wouldn't know me from Adam on the street, but what he poured into me and the advice he gave a new, very green actor before really I had any concept of what he was saying. But when I started to see those things in my journey, it was like, oh, yes, Wendell told me you only need one casting office to really love you because then you'll be in the room all the time. He gave me so many gems. So if I can share some of that, I'm always happy to do it with
I love that he's living rent free in your head. It's good when people have good motives and like good intentions that live rent free.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Where can everybody find you other than on all these wonderful shows? Are you on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram, Frances Turner, just my name. Frances with an E, Turner, Turner.
Thanks for doing this. This was
Thanks for having me.